Okay, audio is okay. It's okay. Okay. The questions that I'm going to be reading, I'm going to be from Blender.Today here. You might see that the design has changed a little bit. Actually, I can show you real quick. The community, now you can actually follow and unfollow community. So Blender.Today is now part, well, it's always been part of Blender community, where it's like a collective of communities. On the front page, you're going to see the communities that you follow, and then you also have the individual communities that you can start to follow. For example, I like to follow, okay, the website now is getting a bit of traffic, or maybe it's getting updated. We just updated, especially for this live stream. And the, okay, I'm going to up the volume here a little bit. Here. Is it okay? Okay, I will wait for your thumbs up. I just upped the volume a little bit. So the website is just a bit different, but you're gonna see it. You should need to follow the communities that you want to follow. The Blender developers meeting happened today, so we're gonna go through some of the updates there. There's also new, it goes everywhere. The news starts from like Grease Pencil. There's also some cycles updates, some interface, but I think we can focus a bit more on the actual questions, because it's been a bit slow this week. I kind of have some news though for what is coming up for Blender.Today. So soon we might have a bit of more interaction with people. I can't announce anything, but maybe the time will change for Blender.Today, and maybe the place, the setup will change as well. But just a little heads up. All right, so news and features and changes. About 115 bugs have been fixed since last week. The week before it was like 80 something bugs fixed, and then and that's just the numbers that are actually fixed. Imagine the ones that are not fixed. So what about the chat? What if I fix the chat so you can actually see yourself chatting? Not loud enough. That is your email instead of chat. So what was on my email? I'm really bad with emails. Who isn't it nowadays? The Paint and Sculpt modes now have basic context menus. What does it mean? That the every time when you're sculpting now, you can right click if you're using the left. Let me here grab my tablet. So if you're here, if you're using the left click select for the actual painting of your textures or sculpting or Grease Pencil or anything, then it's the right click select. But if you're using the right click select menu, you'll find it in the W key, the specials menu basically. And what it does, it basically shows it's the radius, the strength in this case. Ideally this will be like an amazing Krita style with the preview of the brush, and basically every feature you can find, you can think of a painting software. That's the goal. But for the time being, let's be a bit more modest and just include whatever is here on the top bar, so that way you can access it a bit easier. I think when you are using left click select is more convenient. The W key is kind of, if you're using right click select, it's not the fastest way to access all these features, but at least you can get it here. The add and subtract, I'm not a big fan of this, of the buttons up here, like add and subtract and then the radius. This is for sculpting. Like, who would just, nah. Like, you can change add, hey, oh, okay, there's something wonky here going with the menu. When you when you move the mouse away from it, yeah, this is probably not meant for it. When you move the mouse away, Blender uses to close the menus, like you're not using it anymore. But in this case, you're actually hovering to another section. So yeah, many things to fix in that area. Oh, because the radius was too big, and then the mouse gets so weird. Yeah. But the add and subtract actually works with control. With if you hit control, you're basically doing the opposite, subtracting or adding. So I don't know if you really need it up here. So, okay, let me know how it's actually going over at Blender community, because we run this update today. We want to make it more more visible for like right click select. We basically changed a lot about the system. We made it a bit more more focus on the actual communities that are running. So for example, you can see now better what features are in development. For example, if you're in development, you're gonna see them here with like a nice little orange highlight. Then also, if you have some of the features you find they're done, then you will see that, okay, we need to fix some things here. They're gonna be show up on green. So that is like, okay, this is done. So this one, I find them actually pretty handy. Also, you find the ones in fire, they won't gonna show up in red here. Then you see the number of comments that hasn't changed, but also you see now the tags up here. You're gonna find the actual categories that are being used by this post. So this is pretty handy. And also I think it helps a bit more to discover the communities that are in Blender community. And the idea for now is just listing all of the communities that we have, only 6. But in the future, it's gonna show only the communities that you're following, and then you can see like more communities. So that is that's what's gonna change. And I'm not gonna continue browsing the website, because I think you just gave it the hack of death, because it's not responding. So let's move on to a website. It is responding. It's the new features and changes. So this is with the right click select or W key for the context menu in paint modes. Many small user interface naming and layout tweaks to improve usability. Yeah, I think this is an ongoing thing. We've been doing it with Willem for a while. I didn't mention them last week. I mentioned a few of them, but for example, one that I liked that I did recently was that the armature, but basically I also sorted a few of the items here. I moved the speaker lower and the camera closer, and also got the light probe and the light objects together and under the same section, because they're related to shading, right? And one thing that I also did, it was to make the armatures, right before it used to be like a one item drop-down menu. So if you had like to add an armature, you have to go armature and then single bone. And I think it didn't really make a lot of sense when you don't have anything else than a single bone. So now it just adds an armature. It just doesn't ask you anymore. It just adds it, unless of course the menu is expanded by, for example, an add-on such as the amazing Rigify. So if you have Rigify, then it means that the menu is expanded, so that way you're gonna see it. So that is a little bit of a small difference. All right, Sanchit style. What is that? Someone had too much coffee, talking really fast. Am I talking really fast? I'm talking, I think that might be because I'm trying to fit in all the things, because I said it late today. But also, as a separate topic, this week, I just got the news that the 4 remaining shots in the latest Open Movie project, Spring, are the shots that I have to finish. So it's kind of on my desk to wrap up the remaining shots. Then of course there will be a bunch of like fixing border rendering parts of the shots that have maybe too much noise, or maybe the animators went there and just fixed a little thing. Those parts we are gonna border render and then just mask them on top with the compositor, with the Blender compositor. Is that something that is interesting for you? Is it I'm gonna lower the music, sorry, for those that don't there. Thank you for letting me know. But the is it something fun for you, like to see how do we fix issues at the Blender Studio with where the noise is too much, or maybe we just like patch a thing? For example, we did a big change in at the end of the H327. We changed the lighting of like half of a shot, so we render half the shot and we just shovel it on top and re-render the sequence. So that was one of the fixes. The image editor view mode, but going back to the news, now has sample and annotation tools. So it's basically just bringing the annotation tools to more places in Blender, within Blender. The application icons on Linux and the file icons on macOS have been updated, yes, by Jakub, the famous Jakob Steiner, and the creator of the Tango icon set, and William Reinisch, also from the UI interface. So, oh, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for making Blender possible. Thank you, Marcel Garcia. You're super nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Next, cycles can now store UVs more efficiently. So, memory improvements, optimizations in cycles, and this, since cycles is kind of its own thing, not really 2.8 always, all the time. Some of these fixes, actually, you will find them on the stable version of Blender, so-called stable. But if you go to blender.org/experimental, which is the buildbot, you'll find there is two sections. One of them is the beta, and one of them is the stable. The stable is basically 2.79 UI, like, with fixes, with improvements and optimization. So it's much faster to render. If you're actually rendering, you're working on a project with 2.79, you could go and use the stable version, and it should work. TM should work. Next, cycles renders now have metadata about synchronization and path tracing time. Yes, I mentioned this last week. Basically, when you render a shot on a render in cycles, you will find in the image editor, in the show metadata option, metadata, you will find that you will see the samples number. And so, for example, if I put it very low, just make it tiny, you will find either, if you enable view, show metadata down here, or also if you're in the end panel, you're gonna see it here on the side, which is super handy because you can actually see what's taking so long for Blender. And if you use Flamenco on the Blender Cloud, which is, it's not an ad, it's just something really cool that the guys did, is that in some, when you're working, you can exactly see how long it took to open the blend file. So for example, in this shot, it took 45 seconds to open Blender, and then the rendering took an hour. Eek. Okay, and yeah, I didn't know it was gonna take an hour. Oh, that's Julian's computer. Then some other computers are faster, half an hour. So yeah, that's where we're rendering the movie. If you use Flamenco, you're gonna have these stats, which are very handy because sometimes you can render more frames per Blender session. So you open Blender once, it takes 40 seconds, and then you can render many times. So that is more efficient. Going back to the news, viewport preferences now have a setting to disable anti-aliasing for edit mode wireframes. We actually seen this in the last episode because Blender.Today is so up to date that it's super fast. Okay, to get the news. Another one, faster opening of Blender file version. I think I'm reading, what day is today? It's 11th of March. We actually talked about it last week, I think. Or maybe it was in the Spanish live stream, but basically it's faster to open Blender. One of my favorite features is that it's now faster to actually get to the things you're doing. This has been tested on production files. So there are files, the file that I'm working on now, it used to be like around 30,000. Now I have like, for some reason, 42,000 file objects. So it's a pretty neat. I think I'm reaching to the point where I can start talking about getting the questions, because I ran out of things to show, unless, wait, there is the grease pencil stuff. It's my own private list that I have here. I keep forgetting that I make my own private list up here. So the object, okay, this is a fix. You're interested in fixes? There is a fix that it makes the object info node work for Eevee. So for example, if you have a if you are doing shading, if you have 3 different materials, but you can you just want to change the color based on a material itself, you can do so. Maybe I shouldn't do this while I'm streaming using the CPU. Okay, abort the mission. Let's read the commit logs. So basically, the bug report for the developer, it was that InfoNode was basically not working on Eevee. So now, thanks to this report by the community and thanks to Clément Foucault who fixed it, it's now fixed in Eevee. So now you can finally have a random factor to modify the whatever you want on your shaders, which it wasn't possible before. So it's pretty nice. Here, it was added actually a few days ago. So if you run Blender, if you compile your own Blender, or if you use the buildbot, then you will have this fix for ready for like 3-4 days. Yeah. Okay, I'm reading some of the comments here. It's okay. Any news on IES implementations in Eevee? No, not unfortunately not, but it shouldn't be like I heard Lucas Dogner was the one implemented it in cycles, that it shouldn't be too hard, but yeah, maybe that's what happens. What happened to the call for content themes? We're going to be answering questions from Blender.Today, but since we have a bit more time, I can actually answer this. What happened to the call for content themes? That is kind of my fault. I made the default theme for Blender 2.8, and I made the light theme, which is also it needs a bit of maintenance. I have to update it. That is on my plate. I've been super busy with Spring Open Movie project, so during work I can't really check on that much, but I will get back to it. The list of themes has been contributed by the community, and it's already, I think there is already a selection done. So if you look for call for content themes, you will see the selection in the post by Willem. So if you go down here, you will find Willem has selected the top topics by the community here. So sorry, themes by the community. And there was also a discussion about if we wow, this was really went all in. Nice pinkish. Who would use that? Isn't it like messing with your selections? Like all your textures will look like green suddenly? Maybe, I think. But there are some really good ones, and there were even discussions on maybe replacing the Blender light theme with one from the community. So if you go to themes, for the moment Blender has light and dark. The issue now is that the light theme is using dark, like the text color for the icons, and it's not always easy to see what the icon is. So that needs some fixing, and also like on the engine itself for Blender, not everything. Pinky one looks pretty. By the way, you should go and check them out because everybody is uploading their themes. So you get the XML file, you can install it on your own Blender, and you should use them. All right, let's move on and let's answer the question. So there is 43 comments, okay, so far. We just launched this we relaunched this website, so it's a good stress test to put it on a live stream. So okay, the first question is by Giacama. Hi Pablo, will be able to do box select when the move, rotate, scale tools are active? Right now it's a bit annoying to select move then go back. Yeah, that's one of the big topics of the new tool system in Blender, is that it's just a bit like the basics are there, like everything is a tool, right? Like even in this case, like box selection when you're translating or rotating or scaling, and it doesn't always work. Like in a concept it works because you're box selecting and then you're translating, but it doesn't always work. I also believe the move, rotate, and scale widgets should be on, should be in 2.7. They should always be either there or not. You should toggle them, but they shouldn't be tied to a tool per se. They could also be a tool, but you should be able to enable them or not, regardless. So there is some work to be done in that regard. Then we have Michael asking, "Hola Pablo, love the show." Thank you, Michael. Quick question: do you know when micropolygon displacement tessellation will be available in the supported feature set? No, actually. Thank you, by the way. I'm gonna heart that comment. Does it work? Yes, it works. Okay. I actually I don't have any news on that. The features in experimental, usually they just stay there until they're old enough to graduate, or until all the bugs have been fixed. So if there is any bug in the micropolygon displacement or any feature that is experimental, please report them, because the more bug free is gonna make it move to the official and supported set. Also remember that some of the features got added to the experimental because they didn't work on all of the hardware available at the time. So maybe it's just a matter of revisiting, right? But yeah, actually, well, that's one thing that I could that we're gonna, if we move Blender.Today to another place, maybe closer to the developers, wink wink, then we can just get them on board and just ask them stuff. So yes, that would be pretty nice. Manjavan20 says, "Hey Pablo, any plans for the text in Blender? Also, is there a reason why Node have settings and more advanced settings in the properties bar? How about making them smaller so you can fit more Node but have the properties on the side like Natron?" So I don't know about Natron. I haven't used it yet. I haven't done a lot of heavy compositing. But did you know? Yeah, maybe what you mean is that you have the settings in the node and then you have it in the properties. And if you want to go even further, you can enable the settings in the material. And it's basically a one-on-one of every feature. It feels like a kind of a waste of space, but it works depending on whatever tasks you're doing, right? The reason why the settings are shown here on the side for the active node is that you can actually just hide all the settings. How did I do that? Control H. Control H, I think you can also right click or like W for specials, or right click, I think, if you're using the left click select, which is the now default key map. If you go and toggle hidden node sockets, you can hide the ones that are basically not being used. If you have one that is being used, then Control H is going to hide all the other ones that are not being used. However, if you have everything used, then it's just going to be as big, unless you just use H for hiding. So for example, okay, I missed my Blender there as usual. So if you just hide it with H, isn't it just about the same as other? Like, because it still shows the active setting up here, so it's kind of the same. You just need to hide the ones that you don't need. What, 800 euros till the dev hits the 30,000? Really? Isn't that great news? I should remove, by the way, the yeah, actually we're very close. Awesome. Nice. Another question. What's the status of Animation 2020? Any new insider leaks? We are now in 2019 and only 9 months before 2020. We know that 2.9 is going to take a long time to finish. Have you guys made any discussions in the Blender Foundation, Blender/Studio? Well, the Animation 2020 is more of a, well, it's animation, but also a pipeline, like character pipeline, and how to work in animation, like how to animate within Blender. Not only like the animation tools, but rigging tools, but also like exporting maybe and as a cache, and just the whole pipeline, basically the whole working with a team, or just animating something, exporting, doing physics, or just everything. It's a bit too wide. The first step is to get in touch with like the artists all over the place, but not also only artists, but also studios, like actual big, medium to big studios that are well, all sizes really, that want to get Blender into their pipeline, but they are missing specific features. So any new insider leaks? Yes and no. There has been meetings with others, with studios, just to discuss this, but even also during the Blender conference. So it's an ongoing thing. I think 2020 sounds like really long from now. At least last year it sounded like that, and now it's like getting super fast. But there will be more news, I could say. I think we are gonna hear before of Animation 2020. We're gonna hear some news about the Sculpt team, and I say that because today, I don't know if you read. Of course, you're subscribed to the Blender Development Fund, right? Who reads the newspaper anymore? This very nice 90s design website. It contains so like how developers communicate, how they used to communicate 20 years ago and it's still going. Basically, this email by Pablo Navarro, the developer, the artist/developer that was working on the custom brush for Sculpt. He just sent this email mentioning that he's working with very well-known artists such as like Julian Kasper, Zacharias, and Lucas to make a proposal about the features that could be improved in Blender regarding Sculpt. So the next step that they're asking is that if they can have a branch, because the main thing about development is user feedback, is getting it tested, right? That's why we make open movies, that's why we make open films, and that's why we try to get people involved as much as possible with like daily builds and on all of that. So if you check out the document, actually you're gonna see some really nice feature requests / it would be awesome to have it in / it's already in, but they are actually they have it as patches. So having a branch with all of that is like the Grease Pencil branch. Grease Pencil started as its own project with small patches, and they have their own branch. And now they still have the branch, by the way. The Grease Pencil team is developing most of the features on a branch, so they can build it easily. And they move those features from the branch into master, the current Blender 2.8. There's only one true Pablo. Oh yeah, the Pablo. No, Pablo Navarro is amazing. You should check out his stuff on Twitter. There's been a question here. Thank you, Sam. The question is, I get frustrated when I don't have 3D cursor tool selected, but clicking still moves. Can this be changed? Also, when will Pablo Navarro Blender be added to master? Well, actually, I just answered about Pablo Navarro. Thanks. And the question basically is, clicking still moves the 3D cursor, but I don't have it enabled. So yeah, there have been many requests actually about an option to disable the tweaking or like setting of the 3D cursor. And now that we have a tool for it, maybe it should be made into, like, it should be an option for locking the 3D cursor. Sometimes it's so precious when you have that specific position and then you move a frame and then you click accidentally somewhere else. At least with the current key map, with the left click key map, you need to shift and right click on it for it to be set. But I understand your pain. I've been there, done that. So yes, that's something that should be done to improve the 3D cursor tool. But that's a cool thing about the new tool system in 2.8 is that those things now fit. Like before, you will have to add a feature and then you didn't know exactly which feature to add or where to put them because it was all over the place. Now in 2.8, more features have their own place. The same about the color wireframes, for example. Now they have a place as overlays within the Workbench engine. The next question, thinking polygons, it actually talking about, well, you actually linked to it. Thank you. You read my mind. So Vyacheslav says, hi Pablo, good evening to you. Thank you. Any news about POD, parallax occlusion, or POM? Not that I know. I've seen on right click select there has been a bunch of threads about it, but I haven't really kept up with somebody made a girl, Suzanne, with an earring. Anyway, oh, I think it's just missing the message that says that there's no messages. So if you don't see anything, it's because there are no results. I think we just need to fix it that when there are no results, it shows there are no results. But that's an easy fix to do. And I'm curious about this one, Susanna. A way to undo, not eliminate materials and layers you have created in Grease Pencil. That sounds like a bug fix, like a bug. But I didn't read the whole thing yet, so I'm going to continue talking about that feature. The next question is, it's nice that now people, because it happens here on Blender.Today, people actually answer each other. So maybe I just, so the people can, the community can answer each other. So sorry for the creator of the thread is going to have so many notifications. We need new advanced modeling, UV modeling tools more than we have now. Should be the next focus. There have been discussions with the game developers about improving that, and I think they are the ones that need it the most. Of course, modeling everything, but the game artists are the ones asking for this the most. And there's been, especially on Twitter, has been like a lot of noise around that. I'm expecting news on that front rather soon-ish. Or maybe like this year, for not 280 but 281. Remember that 280 is already feature freeze-ish. There may be some new improvements, but it's almost freeze. It's time to fix stuff. Cheers, by the way. It's the same question as before. Yes. Thank you, by the way, for your contribution. The next question by Matt. Is there a way to swap middle mouse button with right mouse button in every shortcut command? I'm using right click because the lower forces used to press that middle button. I don't think there's like a one click to swap them all. You have to go one by one. That's kind of a pity, but yes, that's the way to go. I think it will take some time. You can filter by key, by hotkey. So maybe you can just write middle button there and it would make it easier, but still is a lot of work. Is that something that's possible in other softwares, by the way, that you could just like super easily change the whole mouse interaction? And the second question by Matt is, I noticed that 2.8 is slower in edit mode than 2.7 in comparison to 3D Max. Looks like this. Well, I mean, it's not really, I think it's still a work in progress. In edit mode, there has been many improvements. You should check out the latest builds, because there have been many improvements in performance there. And also remember that depends on how old is your hardware, because if your hardware is kind of older, 2.7 is going to be faster because it's just faster. But if your hardware is newer, super new, then 2.8 is going to be faster because it makes use of those optimizations. So yes, just for beer. Thank you very much. You shouldn't promote these things. People do not drink unless you're appropriate age, and do it carefully. Okay. Oh, asks. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce your name. In the next comment, you should tell me how to pronounce your name. Hi, Pablo. Programs like After Effects offer users the ability to save the current progress when it's crashing. Blender So Simple vanishes when it crashes. What do you think about an option to have? Notification when Blender crashes, an ability to save the current progress upon crash. Okay, yeah, a software crashing can crash for many reasons, right? One of them is the actual software itself. Another one is maybe you're running out of memory. So maybe that could be easier in a way to address, maybe. I'm not really sure, but if you, maybe that you should get an option for it. But remember, Blender saves every time. Every 2 minutes is saving your settings. So maybe, I don't know. Mixed feelings on that. I'm using Krita sometimes, and they also have this, or even GIMP. They have this recover thing that you open the software and it shows recover all the time. And yeah, sometimes it's handy, but sometimes I think Blender is just not doing a really good job on letting you know that it's actually saving these things, because it's doing it anyway. It just needs to communicate it better. Maybe the next time you open it's like, hey, I have this quit.blend, I have the last session, and I have the actual auto saves. Next question. And save says, hey, great stuff as usual. Can I ask you to do a little preview on this? Object visibility can be animated again. Been stuck on it for a little time now. It's not renderability of the collection instance, but more the animation of the objects in the viewport. Antonio actually replied to it. I tried to use one and get no suitable context for yeah, I haven't tried that one yet, and I should have asked what do they mean with it, because today, for example, there was another fix in the shader editor / compositor that you can now actually just drive things from within the compositor. You can drive other crazy settings, so you can drive from one material to the other, and that wasn't possible before. In 2.79 it wasn't really possible unless you use the new dependency graph. So so basically no, unless you really knew how to run Blender on the terminal with the new dependency graph. So actually you can now just the way you set up any other let's see, open drivers editor, the way you edit any other preferences in your Blender. For example, if I'm moving this, maybe I can just change the light location in X. Is that gonna work? So it's not really in world space. No, I think it's no, I'm moving it. Yeah, it's actually doing it. Yeah, I'm moving the lamp and it's changing. Okay, now I'm changing the metallic option, but okay, let's do it properly. So let's add a monkey, a beautiful monkey. Then I'm gonna have this material, and then I'm gonna control the maybe let's use, oh, I'm using CPU for streaming today, so it's gonna be stuck. Okay, so let's set the render, and if I enable, basically you can drive things now. Long story short, you can drive things now. Maybe I should use another property instead of one that is super slow on my computer while I'm streaming and recording at the same time, just as a backup. But basically you can right click. Okay, my mouse stuck. Right click, add a driver, and it will open the driver properties. Then you can just set whatever property and it will should update in real time. That's something that wasn't possible before. So in this case, for example, I'm moving the X location. So if there you go, I move the light, it's actually making it more. Oh, what if I pin the UI? I'm gonna see it, and I move this. Oh yeah, it is working actually. You see, I'm moving the lamp in X, and it's actually changing the value. Oh, I bet the dependency graph is really happy about it. Yeah, so the more I move it in X, it's gonna actually change the subsurface value. Whoa. Okay, crazy shaders are about to become real in in 2.8. That's insane. Driver, so you can basically drive anything with anything from within Eevee, or anything basically. Huh. Okay. Oh, okay, I have something to play with tonight. That sounds bad out of context. We need to get you another computer, Pablo. Thank you very much. I would appreciate it. But maybe, hopefully I can do this maybe somewhere else. I already mentioned, but the idea is that I could possibly maybe do this at work where I have better hardware in the Blender Studio, but we still have to discuss about it. But that would be ideal because now I'm using my laptop at home and it's just too much to do live stream plus this with a laptop. One of the most annoying things in 2.8 is the dithering of the X-ray. Why can't the pattern alternate as viewport quality extra draws kick in? I kind of like what EV Alpha Hashed is doing. I think, yeah, but that's for the Workbench engine, right? So the reason, yeah, I don't have a real reason why the X-ray is just looks as it looks now. I think it's just a limitation because you have to have a balance, right, between performance and looks. I don't think anybody is a big fan of how the hashed X-ray looks at the moment when you are in solid mode or like in semi-transparent, or when you're actually in wireframe mode. So I would maybe once we have, in a few weeks actually, it's March 11 already, in 1 month we're gonna have the developers here so we can actually ask them live what the hell's going on with the hashed transparency. Bjorn says, yay, another episode, love it every week. Thank you very much, Bjorn. Would it be nice to have a button to copy all or some of the settings from look dev to render mode? Yes, I would love to use just to have access to the images in the HDRIs, and they're actually within Blender. You can see them if you compile your own Blender. Like you see in the config Blender, you should see it. Data files, studio lights, and then you should see, these are actually the ones you have. But where you compile your own Blender, there should be a data files, studio lights, world, and then you have the EXR. So when you compile your Blender, when you download it, you have the binary folder, the version, then data files, studio lights, and then you have all three, like all the matcaps, they are EXRs too. And you can find the world, but this is like you have to dig inside of the Blender source to see it. Ideally, when not if, but when we have an asset manager, we can actually use it from there. I think it's just a matter of UI, the reason why we can't access those. Doesn't make sense. They're built in Blender. We should be able to use them. And then everybody will make renders with those images, like when the world color was blue, that all the renders were blue. We even made a t-shirt with the default cube and a blue background. So when is release candidate planned? In April, or is it released to April? No, release is definitely not gonna be in April. The second week of April, there will be a meeting about from the Blender developers, the home stretch. I already mentioned this in a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's just good as a reminder that in order to wrap up the Blender 2.80, the first release of Blender 2.80, it's necessary to have everybody here, or at least most of the core team together here. So in during the Code Quest last year, there was this big meeting for 3 months to get 2.8 started, and it worked great. We're actually using it in production. It's almost there, but over 1 year of development, some of the topics still need some polishing, and so it's better to have everybody here. And that's what's gonna happen. Like here, we see Sivren raising the hand. Here, Sivren Stuhl is one of the developers that's gonna be here and working on the home stretch workshop, which is like just a bunch of meetings and discussing what to do and how to do it. And I'm really glad that Sivren is gonna be there because we need his contributions for Alembic and being able to bake the animation. And like right now I'm doing lighting, for example, and sometimes my files look weird because the constraints from the animator's files don't translate to the lighting file. A lighter shouldn't even deal with the constraints and stuff. They should just get like a mesh. you know, like a bunch of points in space, awesome in space. Those things, they take a lot of time and a lot of thinking, so it's good to have the whole team here together to decide how to do it and when to do it and address it. That's also part of the Animation 2020 project. All right, another question, because I'm running out of time already. Hello, it would be nice if the snap to vertex option would also work in edge slide mode. It's not possible for technical reasons. Snap to vertex, but also in edge slide. No. This sounds like one of those features that you can like sneak in as a bug report, but it's actually a feature request. So maybe you can try that. I shouldn't say that. I hope developers are not really watching this, but it sounds like it's not a real tech, but maybe there is a technical reason and you're gonna find out there, but maybe it's just that when it was implemented, it wasn't addressed. Sometimes you hear people on videos on YouTube or whatever just talking about how some things don't make sense and why can't you, like, I don't know, something, right, with the UI especially. And it's not just it doesn't make sense, it's just that it wasn't even thought about when it was implemented. So it's just missing feedback. The next question by Ponomadovmax from Ukraine. In Cycles, the volumetric shader repeats the shape of the model exactly, but in Eevee, it renders like cubes, bounding box. Is it a limitation of Eevee or is something wrong? Or is it a feature for future versions? That's a very good question. And I don't really have an answer. I haven't used the Eevee volumes yet that much, but I think you can model, you can shape it in a way to make it work just as close as with Cycles. Maybe you need to use more textures instead than the actual shape. And also, well, I mean, one is ray tracing and the other one is not, so there are limitations. But yes, the oh, nice, people talking there. Uncle Ton. on the chat. Okay, next question. You.Ninja, are you sure? Are you setting up the stream from scratch every time? Thank you for that question. I am not setting up the stream from scratch every time. I am I have the light set up and the sometimes the audio I do have to set it up from scratch. I recently changed the microphones, that's why there were sound issues last week. I also got a mixer where you can actually control the stuff. I think the main issue, that's why also I start late, is that I make it at home at 9 p.m. and I usually leave from work around 8 p.m. So it gives me time, very short time, to come home, cook dinner and prepare the files and set up the live stream. But hopefully if I start doing this at the studio at work, the Blender studio, there will be one setup that it will just like be permanently there. And also during the week I do my own stuff at computer, so it's just I can't have it all. Streaming is not my day job, so I sometimes unplug and plug stuff. Sorry about that. Soon it will be over, hopefully. Biomind asks, hey, love the streams, thank you. Would you consider creating pie menus for X delete? It would probably work better if deleting geometry and dissolving geometry were separated into two separate hotkeys. Isn't it Control X for dissolving? Wait. Control X, dissolve selection, Control X. And I think, yeah, it's kind of okay, it's kind of wonky, but that's a shortcut, Control X. It's a different shortcut, and I'm not sure if it should be always a pie menu. And some of the pie menus I like, some of them I find them a bit annoying. Like for example, this one, the bounding box, like the pivot point. Most of the time I just use the bounding box or the 3D cursor, and I go left and right all the time. I almost never use the other ones. So it's not something I really use all the time. Also here for the orientation, most of the time I just go and change it from up here. So, and how does it work when you have many? Okay, it just ignores them. Yeah, some things deserve a pie menu, some other they don't. There is a pie menu editor add-on. It's commercial, but the sources should be available online too. The add-on lets you create like your own pie menus, but also basically anything in the UI. I've never used it myself, but I've seen people using it. Julian at work, he is a big fan, and I've seen it, and it's very smart the way to build a UI. I hope that functionality will be within Blender, so you could actually tweak it. Next question, the drag. Oh, hi Pablo, I love this show, thank you. Here's 4 of the things, is like a top 4 that make Blender 2.8 bad and slow for some users. Number 1, when you're in pose mode, you cannot shift select the mesh. Yes, you can. It's not a feature. It's a feature actually. You just need to disable lock object mode. The thing is, this is different how it used to be in Blender 2.7. So that's why it's a setting that is on by default. Maybe it should be disabled by default so all users can continue working as usual. Second, the display panel is removed. So now we need to find a new way to make transparent color and a new way to add X-ray on items. No, there's no new way for an object. In the object settings, it has a viewport display. Viewport display is a naming convention that is used all across Blender 2.8. You have it from the world settings, viewport display, to materials. They have the viewport display to every section, including armatures, have a viewport display setting. In the object level, if you want to set it as X-ray, just click in front. In 2.7, it was the same thing. You would just need to click. It was called X-ray, now it's called in front, which is a bit more. It's a better description. Also, the color for transparency, you just need to lower the alpha value of your objects. So if you're in object, you will see it through. So that I think that answers the second question. The display panel is removed because the display panel was on the viewport and is now per object. The equivalent of the display panel is here under shading and overlays. It's just that there are so many new options that you can disable and enable, like the 3D cursor, that it wasn't possible in 2.7, that we need, or like wireframe geometry and stuff. All of that needed a new place and a bigger place, so that's why it was added. Number 3, the removing of the render image button and the render animation button was one of the dumbest things you could do. And it makes 2.8 harder. If you click on delete and not F12, you need to undo the deletion. But if you use an add-on that don't let you undo, if you use an add-on that don't let you undo, okay, if you use an add-on, then it's the add-on that needs to be fixed. The render button and the render animation button, it's something that we are discussing how to bring it back. That I am absolutely with you. It was it's one of the things that you have to do first, just to see how it feels, how it works, and then you work in ways to bring it back, but maybe in a better shape. The same with wireframes. They were removed for a while just because they it's obvious that they will come back, but it's better just to wait and see how it could come back. The same with object visibility. Remember there were like months without them, and then they came back, and now you can actually have these other settings, and yeah, some things came back. Thank you, Alexander Pogrebetsky, for the little tip. I appreciate it. It's very nice. But if you have any ideas on how to bring it back, please let me know, or let us know in the Dev Talk forums. There is a discussion actually about the render buttons, how they could be brought in. It's on developer, like I think, I'm not sure I'm gonna find it here, but it says render button 2017. There is a patch here, okay, there was a patch on how to add these ones. There was a discussion already. Oh yeah, I made this patch, and it's actually functional. I made this to add the render buttons up here. This one, I made this one based on someone else's proposal. about having the render, and I think that also could work, and it would move the buttons from the side. But yeah, it needs a bit more thinking. I think the render could be there on the sidebar, and with the engine, the current engine, which is not something you change all the time. The engine, if you have cycles, you just cycles. But yeah, there has been discussions on how to add it on the bottom or on the same way we're doing it with the current save preferences in the settings. But yes, it's a discussion that is going on, so please get involved and just make yourself being heard. All right, another question. When I right click on a vertex, I cannot move it. I need to hold down the button, and that can make it software feel slower. That is the tweak mode. You need to disable it from the user preferences. So all of these settings are mainly just preferences, I think, most of them, except the buttons that I need to come back. But yeah, I'm totally running out of time, so I'm gonna answer 5 more questions, and just to make it like usual. Hello there, is there any chance to see, or at least see, the Blender child compensation in future? Moving the pattern without a child. I'm not familiar with the setting, but I think there should be an add-on that it does that. I think there was an add-on, but it would be cool to have it in Blender too. Number 4, Valentin asks, the improvements of Blender 2.8 are great, but without fixing the most basic, it remains unuseful for more advanced productions, rather with a normal use. For example, procedural texture does not work on Eevee. So what do you mean it remains unusable? If it wasn't useful because Eevee didn't exist, right? But I know what you mean. Forcing us to go through other texturing software. When will we be able to use Blender at full power and stop focusing on the details that are cool but not essential? This will come with time. Blender 2.7 has like 25 years of like working and fixing, and okay, maybe after 2.5 in 9 years ago there has been another gap, but still it has many years of being fixed. Blender internal is also more than 20 years old, so it's gonna take a bit of time, but now we have more manpower, so it's not gonna take 10 years again, it's gonna take much less. But there is one Eevee developer at the moment. Imagine the amount of work this guy has. So just give it time. 2.79, it's not going anywhere, it's still there. So let's give 2.80 the time it deserves. The small details that you're mentioning are mainly done by developers or just like volunteers, but not the core developers. The core developers are now working on making Eevee, for example, work on more different softwares and make it optimized for more kind of hardware. So that is the hardcore. That is what the Blender Development Fund is paying for, and also back fixes, because without a stable software, no matter if you have real-time displacement or not, if it's not stable, it's going to crash, it's not useful. So that's where the efforts are going right now. All the little details and the icons, and yeah, those are not made by developers, of course. They are made by just regular volunteers that contribute a few lines of code here and there. Next question, Daniela, number 3, I think. Hey Pablo, everything Node is a huge project. Yes, Jack really will have his hands full of that. Yes, and he's working on it already. Is there any way we can donate to him or Blender to maybe get some more hands on the project? Yes, the fund.blender.org. On the fund.blender.org website, you will find the grants page. In the grants, you will see that Jack, Luke, Sergey, and they are all working full-time for Blender. So they, like, if you contribute to the Blender Development Fund, you're actually paying for Clement for Eevee, Campbell for like everything, Brecht for also cycles, everything. Bastian is like library linking, asset management. Sergey is like the dependency graph, animation system, cycles, motion tracking, everything, all the hardcore stuff. So yes, your answer is like, thank you for asking for that, but the everything node is not only Shaq, but it's also dependency graph, for example, so it's also Sergey. So it's a community project and is run now by the Blender Foundation. It's at the Blender Studio. So join the fund, the development fund, and let's make it happen. Question number 2, is Cycles getting any development love? Yes, it is. Optimizations, we just mentioned about it at the beginning. Like, yeah, optimizations all over the place. And if you get the wiki notes, you will see, because people say like, hey, Eevee, like Cycles, everything is going to Eevee and not to Cycles. But if you actually read the release logs, you will find that Cycles has, in 2.80, has a bunch of updates from the principal Heavy SDF, volume shader, crypto matte, random walk for subsurface, better subsurface scattering, displacement, velo shader, ambient occlusion shader, it wasn't there. Other things such as like transparent glass option for compositing is also new, and just you can bake roughness, for example. So there has been plenty of development in Cycles. It's just that it's been long since 279, so it feels like nothing happened, but it's really happening. And it's more to come, but it's mainly on optimizations and well, IES support, bunch of things. The one I'm waiting the most is, that is not even started, I guess, is the light linking. That is like the one that every time I use it is like, I miss it. And the last question says, could you confirm whether this is a bug or not? All right, whenever using HDRI image to light a scene, high roughness values can very blotch out shading. I can't really see this one now, but maybe we can poke one of the developers. But if it's if it looks like a bug, okay, it's hard to eek, blotchy. That sounds like a resolution issue. Maybe we can poke Clement here on the chat, on the dev talk. But otherwise, you can report it as a bug if it looks like a bug. All right, I'm way over time, so I'm gonna go back to just preparing for the next live stream, because for some reason I'm just doing this twice every Monday on Spanish and English, in Spanish and in English. So I need to